Okay, so you finished your edit and now you're ready to render. When we are going to extract, or not extract, when we're going to save our work from the screen, all the little pixels here that have been decoded so we can see them on the screen now have to be re-encoded back into a codec that we can send it, we can share, we can upload to YouTube. So there's basically two ways to do that. The safer way, or the one that though it's going to work all the time, is that you go on File, Export, Media. And then the media export window is going to come up. And then the media export window is going to come up. There are a number of things, but I'm just going to close this export window. Actually, I'm going to go back to Edit, not Close. If you click on the X, you're going to close Premiere. I'm going to go back on Edit because I want to show you guys another one. If you do have the timeline selected, how do I know do I have the timeline selected? Because there is a blue bar around the timeline. Here my program is selected or highlighted. Here my project is highlighted, so I need to highlight or select my timeline. With my timeline selected, I press Control M on the keyboard, and then the same window will come up. Okay, so the very important thing to remember is, okay, put a name that makes sense. On this case here, you guys are going to write your name, Lord of the Rings, or LORT, abbreviation for Lord of the Rings, your name, okay? Put your name here, don't put anybody else's name here, and then select where you're going to save it. Where you're going to save it? You're going to save it under your folder. Let's say that you're in the 4th period and you're Jackson. So you're going to select Jackson's folder, and here you're going to save your render. I'm not going to do that because I'm not Jackson. The next thing to look into is the codec or the format. We are going to mostly only use H.264. But I want to show you the window here that you have the selection for codecs, and you have a number of them. I believe I have told you guys before that OP1A is broadcast quality. Broadcast meaning you're sending to Fox, NBC, CBS, or any other broadcast company. Those are broadcast quality codecs. Apple ProRes, Avid DNX, you have the H.264, the codec that we are mostly going to use all the time. You have H.264 for Blu-ray. You have H.265 or the HVAC or high performance codec that Apple loves it, and nobody can open those crazy pictures from the Apple phones. MP3s only MPEGs, and a number of them that we don't really care much because we're not doing any broadcast work right now. We're not doing anything different. Maybe eventually I'll do a video on how to save to broadcast. They do have a few things that are very, very particular for broadcast. But we're saving for YouTube or the web or an internal server. So H.264 is perfectly fine. The next thing that you need to look at is the tab video. So if you click on the arrow, you're going to expand the video tab. And here it says match source, but you can just uncheck all of those. Let's do that so we can explore. So into the frame size, you have a number of options. Always use the one that you have filmed at, which is HD 1920 by 1080 pixels. You can downscale it to SD, or you can upscale it to UHD, which is this one here is television. This one here is rarely used. It's not cinema. Very seldom applications use full 4K. Most commercial 4K out there is UHD. We're going to talk more about aspect ratios and cinema things, but if you were to upscale, you would upscale to UHD, but you do lose a little bit of quality. We did talk about this infamous 23.976. We know that Thumb frame rate is 24 frames per second, not 23.976 or 2997 instead of 30. And as you can also see, there's a number of different frame rates here that you can select. You could think, oh my God, I'm going to save this in 300 frames per second so I can later slow motion it. And we're going to learn how to do slow motion later, but that's not the case. So really all you're looking for is to save in the frame rate that you filmed. Why is Premiere selecting 2397? It's because it's the frame rate that it's accepted by broadcast. And I explained you guys that the reason why we have this fraction in the frame rate is to give a little bit of bandwidth so the broadcast can send the image, and then on the remaining bandwidth left by the image, they send the audio. And then the television syncs them both, and you can see people talking the words that they're actually talking. If you select 24p and send to a broadcast aggregator, they're not going to be able to proceed or to air your film. You need to send it in 23.976 or 2997. Those are both broadcast frame rates. The reason why Premiere selects 23976 or 2997 is because it only broadcast can only accept this frame rate, and YouTube and desktops and network servers, they all accept this frame rate here. So this makes a more universal frame rate. So that's why you should preferably always select 23976 to kind of future-proof your render. Progressive and interlaced. This is a long conversation. We're not going to talk about this right now. We're not going to talk about square pixels. What I want you guys to look at is at the very end of this window, target bit rate. And Premiere will, depending on your custom setting, will select this number here. This number affects the size of the file, of the finished file. This, remember, is a minute and 4-second file. So if I bring it all the way up, it's now 400 megabytes, almost half a gigabyte. And I did ask you guys, would you be able to put this on your phone? And the vast majority of you said, absolutely not. It's way too big of a file for just a minute of video. I do not have that much space on my phone. And that's correct. So why you have this is because the higher this number here, the higher the megabytes per second, the less compressed the file is, the more quality it has. The problem is it becomes a huge file and nobody can, it's unmanageable for our purposes. So we bring this number down to around 10, or I can come in here and just type 10. And 10 is the average number for a YouTube video. Anything on YouTube will be around 10 megabytes per second. Now you see that it went down from 400 megabytes to 93. We could even compress it a little bit more to 2 megabytes per second. Now we have a tiny little file, but very, very compressed. And the more compressed the file is, the less quality the image will have. And probably at 2 megabytes per second for that, it will be noticeable. So let's leave it at 10 megabytes per second, which is good enough for what we're doing. Always remember to check the target bit rate and make sure it is at 10 megabytes per second. Everything else around audio and multiplexer captions, we're not going to talk about this right now. We're going to leave as is. And you do have the option to just click export because it's a small file. It should not take too long to render. Or preferably, you should click on Send to Media Encoder. So Adobe Media Encoder is a dedicated software only for encoding, only for rendering. And when I clicked on Send to Media Encoder, here is my file. The advantage in doing this is that you're not freezing out Premiere. If you click Export, Premiere will freeze and it will only come back to, quote, normal, quote, when it's done rendering the file. If you send it to Media Encoder, Premiere is free to continue your edits. But that's not really the advantage because the computer will be very It's a very process intensive operation to render files, especially MP4 files. We can talk about this on another day. So Media Encoder, the advantage of it is that let's say that you're editing a campaign for TikTok and you just edited 60 videos. So you just send them all to Media Encoder instead of rendering them one at a time. And then when you're done, you click the little green button here to go render and you go to bed or go have dinner. Another advantage of Media Encoder is that you can encode different formats for the same video. Let's say here that I want a audio only version of this for captions. So I could select here audio only, MP3 128 kilobytes per second. I click, hold, and drag on the name of the render, and boom, there it is. Media Encoder is going to create a different version of that. And let's say that I also want to send this to a broadcast aggregator like Fox. So I find the right codec here. This is the Avid DNX. So I click, hold, and drag over the name, and boom, there you go. You have another render for this a little 1 minute file. So Media Encoder will render 3 different versions: one MP4 for YouTube, one Avid DNX for a broadcast, and one audio only for captions. Okay. And we're going to talk about captions on another day. When you're satisfied with this, I'm actually going to delete those. And if you want to delete one of them, you just select them and press delete on your keyboard. Yes, sir. Select delete. Yes, sir. All right. I'm going to click here on render so you guys can see what happens. When you click on render, Media Encoder does quite a few things, and it went quite fast, and now it's rendering the little clip, and it's almost done. It also tells you here how much time is left, and it, because it's just a minute and the computer here is pretty good, it's pretty much done. Sometimes it will hang here at the end for a while, especially if it's a bigger file, just to wrap the MP4. MP4 is really a wrapper, not a music wrapper, but a codec wrapper. You guys can Google this. It's a very technical, long explanation. But anyway, it wrapped the file. Everything is ready to be played, and you are done. You save it to your folder under your name. All you have to do now is to send a message on Schoology saying, hey, I have my file ready. Give me my grade. Hope you guys enjoy this. And until next time, keep editing. See you next time.